Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling, well, a really foundational text, a genuinely terrifying look at absolute control.
We are. We're talking about George Orwell's 1984, published way back in 1949, and specifically the mechanisms of power he lays out.
Right, and our goal here isn't just, a book report.
No, not at all. This is a deep dive into the logic within the source material we have. We're trying to extract the actual functional blueprint for totalitarianism. How does a state achieve what our analysis calls absolute control? That's the question.
That phrase, absolute control, it's what hits you right away, isn't it? The book just drops you into this bleak, dystopian world, Oceania, ruled by the party and this omnipresent face, Big Brother.
And the central conflict is stark. Total power versus, well, the individual mind. Your own thought.
Exactly. So to really get under the hood of this system, how it works, we've broken down our analysis into three main areas, three kinds of control.
That's right. First, we need to graph the basic setup, the structure of this totalitarian state, just how far its reach goes.
Yeah.
Second, we'll dig into how the party manipulates the external world, how they manufacture reality, basically, controlling truth, history, even language itself.
Which sounds huge.
It is. And then finally, the third part, we get to the real battleground, the individual's mind, the psychological methods used to break down and rebuild a person from the inside out.
Okay, let's start there with that foundation, the structure of it all. So Orwell sets this story in 1984 in a world that's just perpetually chaotic, right? Geopolitically speaking. Oceania, where the story happens, is one of three superstates, and they're always at war.
Always. Either with Eurasia or Eastasia, it shifts, but the war itself is constant. And you're right, that war isn't just background dressing. It's absolutely fundamental to how the state operates.
How so? What does the constant war do for the party?
Well, it does several things at once. On a psychological level, it keeps everyone in this state of permanent low-grade fear and patriotic fervor, always looking over their shoulder, always needing protection.
Which makes them more willing to give up freedoms for security.
Precisely. And then there's the economic side. The novel suggests pretty strongly that the war just eats up surplus production. Goods that, if they reach the people, might make them comfortable, might make them question things, question why things aren't better.
So the war machine keeps people poor and scared, basically. It justifies rationing, justifies shortages.
And justifies secrecy, demands unity, and above all, absolute obedience. It's the perfect excuse forever for total control. And this constant crisis justifies the power structure, the party, with Big Brother as the face.
This is where we hit that core theme the analysis mentions, totalitarianism. And in 1984, that means a regime that wants to wipe out everything else you might be loyal to.
Exactly. Forget family, forget truth, forget even your own feelings if they don't align with the party. All loyalty must flow upwards to Big Brother.
And our source material really hammers this home. The government exercises absolute control over every single aspect of life. Now, you listening might think, okay, dictatorship, but Orwell pushes it way beyond just laws and police.
Oh, much further. And you see this immediately in the government structure itself. The names of the ministries. It's pure, cynical genius.
Right. The Ministry of Plenty, which oversees shortages and rationing.
The Ministry of Peace.
Yeah.
Which runs the perpetual war.
The Ministry of Love. The scariest one, handling torture, interrogation, brainwashing.
And the Ministry of Truth, where Winston works, which produces lies, propaganda, erases history.
That flipping of language, peace is war, truth is lies, love is torture, is like the first lesson for every citizen. Reality is whatever the party says it is. Forget what the words used to mean.
It conditions you. It introduces this idea that contradiction is normal, even necessary. Which brings us to what the party is really targeting with all this control. This is where it gets personal, internal.
The analysis highlights three specific targets: thoughts, language, and memory.
Yes. Controlling what people do is standard authoritarian stuff. But controlling what you think, what you remember, that's the end game.
How is controlling memory even possible? It feels so fundamental to who we are.
But think about it. If the party can dictate what the collective memory is, what you personally are supposed to remember, they control your context for everything. If they erase the memory of things ever being different or better, how can you even judge your current situation? How can you know you're oppressed?
You lose your baseline, your measuring stick.
Exactly. So the goal isn't just making people follow orders. It's about stopping them from even conceiving that things could be different, erasing the memory, even the idea of freedom.
So the mind itself is the battlefield. They have to control the information coming in, and they have to control how you process it inside.
Precisely. That internal control, thoughts, language, memory, it's the bedrock for the psychological warfare we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But first, let's look at the tools they use to shape that external reality everyone sees.
Okay, moving on to controlling the external world. And our viewpoint character here is Winston Smith. He works, as you said, at the Ministry of Truth, which should really be called the Ministry of Lies. What's his actual job? What does he do day to day? And what does that tell us about how the party views the past?
Winston's job is, well, it's terrifying in its banality, but profound in its implications. He's essentially a historical revisionist clerk. People often think it's just censorship, like deleting things. It's much more active than that.
He's not just removing things, he's changing them.
Yes. Let's say the party announces today that, I don't know, the chocolate ration is increasing. But yesterday's records, or last year's plans, show it was supposed to increase more, or maybe it's actually decreasing. Winston's job is to go back, find every newspaper article, every record, every speech mentioning the old figures, and meticulously change them to match the new reality dictated today,
So they're constantly rewriting their own past, erasing mistakes, contradictions.
making the party infallible, retroactively. That's why the Ministry of Truth is so vital. It protects the party's image, its stability. It all comes back to that core idea highlighted in our analysis. Who controls the past controls the future.
Let's unpack that quote a bit more. Who controls the past controls the future. In a normal society, history is kind of like a check, right? Accountability.
It holds power accountable. You can say, look, you promised this, but the record shows you did that.
But if the party just erases the record, what are they shielding themselves from?
From reality itself, objective reality. The past is evidence. If they can destroy all proof that things were different, that promises were broken, that predictions were wrong, then the present moment, whatever the party claims it is, becomes the only reality. There's no external reference point left to argue with.
It's like intellectual sterilization. You remove the tools people need to critically assess the present.
Exactly. And by controlling the past, they make the future completely malleable. Success is whatever they declare it to be today because there's no past record to contradict them. Failure simply ceases to have ever existed.
And this requires the citizens, like Winston, who are doing the rewriting, to perform this mental gymnastics, this doublethink the book talks about.
Doublethink. Crucial concept. It's the ability to hold two completely contradictory ideas in your head at the same time and accept both.
Like knowing the party is infallible while your entire job consists of correcting the party's past infallible statements.
Precisely that. You know it's a lie, but you also accept the lie as truth. You rewrite the past, and then you genuinely believe the rewritten version. It's a necessary skill for survival and for party loyalty.
Wow. Okay, so controlling history shapes what people think. The next logical step seems to be controlling how they think. Which brings us to newspeak, language itself as a tool of control.
Yes, newspeak. This might be Orwell's most chilling and maybe most prescient invention. The party understands that language isn't just for communication. It shapes consciousness.
And newspeak isn't just about censoring bad words, is it? The goal is much bigger.
Much bigger. The source analysis is clear. The ultimate aim is to make dissenting thought crime literally impossible by shrinking the language, by removing the very words needed to conceive of such thoughts.
How does just cutting down vocabulary achieve that? Can't people still think complex ideas?
Well, think about the words you need for abstract concepts. Freedom, justice, morality, individuality, rebellion. These ideas require nuance, shades of meaning, complex terms. Newspeak aims to strip all that away.
So it simplifies everything.
Radically simplifies. It eliminates synonyms. Why have 10 words for good when one approved word will do? It collapses complex ideologies into simplistic, loaded terms. CrimeThink is a great example. It bundles all forms of dissent into one ugly, punishable word.
And concepts the party doesn't like, say, freedom.
They work to eliminate the word entirely, or restrict its meaning to something trivial like the dog is free from lice. The political or philosophical concept of freedom is targeted for destruction. The idea is if you don't have the word, the concept itself becomes harder and harder to grasp, to articulate, even to yourself.
You can't form the argument in your head if you don't have the building blocks, the words.
Exactly. It's like cognitive amputation. They want to prevent the possibility of rebellion by removing the linguistic tools needed to formulate it. If you can't express dissent, eventually maybe you can't even think it. The party's ideology becomes the only one that can be coherently expressed or even conceived.
Okay, so we've got this totalitarian structure built on never-ending crisis. We've got this manufactured external reality constantly shifting, controlled through history and language. But none of that works without enforcement, right? Which brings us inside the individual's head. The battle for internal reality, starting with constant surveillance.
Surveillance is the bedrock. It's non-negotiable for this system.
Yeah.
And the symbol, the mechanism, is the telescreen. Big Brother's always watching, yes, but the telescreen makes it technologically real. And it's crucial to understand it's not just a camera.
Right, it's not passive. It broadcasts at you, but it also watches and listens to you. A two-way intrusion.
Mandatory. Everywhere. Your home, your workplace, public squares. Blaring propaganda, instructions, noise, but always, always watching. Listening. You might try to hide your face, whisper. But there's no escape. No private space. Ever.
Just the psychological weight of that, knowing you're never truly alone, never unobserved, it must be immense.
Crushing. And that's where the thought police come in. They're not your average cops dealing with crime. They deal with thought crime.
Being arrested not for what you did, but for what you thought, or even just what your face looked like while thinking it.
Exactly. A flicker of doubt during the 2 minutes, hate. An expression that isn't enthusiastic enough,
Yeah.
that's potentially lethal. They're monitoring microexpressions, unconscious gestures. Your inner life becomes state property, potentially punishable by death.
So you become your own jailer, constantly policing your own thoughts, your own face, before the thought police even get involved.
It's the most effective form of control. Self-censorship driven by pure terror. And it's this pressure cooker that pushes Winston, despite everything, towards rebellion. Which leads us to his brief and ultimately doomed attempt at finding some kind of solace.
Yeah, despite the overwhelming odds, the analysis notes he secretly hates the party, dreams of resistance. It's practically suicidal. But his rebellion isn't like grand political action initially, it's personal.
Deeply personal. He starts a forbidden love affair with Julia. The source calls her a like-minded woman. And in Oceania, this is perhaps the most radical act of defiance possible.
Why love? Why is that so dangerous to the party?
Because the party demands all loyalty, all passion be directed towards Big Brother. Genuine love, intimacy, sexual desire between two people, that's an independent emotional bond. Is a private world the party doesn't control. It's self-ownership. It's emotional treason.
So there's secret meetings, little room they rent. It's like they're trying to build a tiny pocket of real life outside the party's gaze.
A fragile bubble of sanity and connection, based on trust, shared hatred of the party. It's a micro-rebellion. But the system is designed to find and burst exactly these kinds of bubbles. Independence, even on this small scale, cannot be tolerated.
Which leads inevitably to the trap closing, betrayal, arrest. And this is where we meet O'Brien, a high-ranking party member, seemingly intellectual, who Winston initially thought might be an ally.
O'Brien represents the party's final stage of control, the intellectual enforcer. And when Winston is taken to the Ministry of Love, O'Brien isn't just interrogating him for information like a normal secret policeman might.
No, the goal is different. The analysis talks about torture, psychological manipulation, fear, propaganda, all aimed at enforcing loyalty. What's O'Brien really doing to Winston?
He's systematically destroying Winston's mind, his sense of reality. The torture isn't just about pain, though there's plenty of that. It's about proving the party's power over objective truth.
The famous scene with the fingers.
Exactly. O'Brien holds up 4 fingers, insists Winston sees 5, and through pain and manipulation, he forces Winston not just to say he sees 5, but eventually maybe to actually perceive 5, or at least to lose faith in his own perception entirely.
So the party can dictate not just history books, but what your own eyes tell you.
That's the assertion of power. They need to demonstrate that reality is whatever the party says it is. It's not about confession, it's about conversion. Breaking the mind, not just the body.
It's colonization of the soul. Physical pain gets you to submit, but the psychological warfare aims for what? Genuine belief.
Genuine acceptance. Which brings us to the final devastating conclusion. Winston's independent thought is shattered. This peaks in Room 101.
Room 101, where you face your absolute worst fear.
Your deepest, most primal terror. Whatever it is that would make you betray anything, anyone. For Winston, it's rats. And the party uses this to force the ultimate betrayal.
The sources point to the chilling end. Winston is broken. He sits in the Chestnut Cafe, traces 2 + 2 = 5 in the dust, and the final line tells us he has been forced. No, he has won the victory over himself. He loved Big Brother. Why love? Why isn't just obeying enough?
Because obedience can be faked. Fear creates resentment, requires constant vigilance. It's unstable. But love is voluntary surrender. It means your will is now aligned with the party's will. There's no internal conflict left.
So when he betrays Julia in room 101, shouting, "Do it to Julia, not me."
Uh, he sacrifices the last piece of his independent self, his emotional core. By choosing self-preservation over love, he destroys his own humanity as he understood it. Loving Big Brother means there's nothing left inside him that resists.
Yeah.
His desires are the party's desires. It's total conquest,
Right.
internal,
Yeah.
absolute. The victim embraces their chains. Hashtag tech outro.
Wow. That's quite a journey through the mechanics of oppression.
Yeah.
So if we try to synthesize this deep dive, we've really identified 4 key pillars holding up the system of absolute control in 1984.
I think so. First, you have the basic structure, that totalitarian state, built on this idea of permanent crisis, the endless war, justifying everything and focusing loyalty on Big Brother.
Right. Second, there's the active, constant manipulation of external reality, controlling history, controlling truth, summed up by that phrase, who controls the past controls the future.
Third, the linguistic control, newspeak, shrinking language to literally shrink the possibility of rebellious or complex thought, cutting off dissent at the root.
And finally, tying it all together is that pervasive surveillance, the telescreens, the thought police, leading to the ultimate goal, psychological destruction and forced internal submission. Not just breaking people, but remaking them.
And the takeaway for you, listening, is really about the fragility of our own reality, perhaps. How much our sense of self, our ability to think critically, depends on access to objective truth, reliable memory, and a rich language. Orwell shows the terrifying potential for a state to systematically dismantle all of that.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If this incredibly complex, brutal apparatus, the ministries, the thought police, Room 101, if its ultimate goal is to force people to actually love Big Brother, what does that tell us about power? Does it suggest that even for the most totalitarian regimes, simple forced obedience isn't quite enough? That maybe there's something inherently human, some need for genuine belief or connection that they feel compelled to corrupt and co-opt rather than just ignore?
An interesting question. Does the need to manufacture love imply that authentic loyalty, freely given, remains the ultimate, perhaps unattainable prize, even for absolute power? Something to think about.